According to The Hill, the newspaper, not the raised area of land, Democrats now think their next nominee need not be likable. He or she just needs to win. Which is funny. It's not like Hillary lost because of her sparkling personality. Back pain is more appealing. What they mean is they want a fighter, someone who can throw punches instead of retreating to Gwyneth Paltrow's flat to mainline quinoa. A fighter isn't polite or normal, but formal, but aggressive, blunt, and sometimes even rude, meaning they're looking for their Trump for two reasons. One, we may never return to the way things were before Trump. It's not enough to tie the perfect Windsor knot or make the most tasteful toast. You got to be interesting, funny, raw. But also, it seems likability means less when assessing effectiveness. Fact is, you didn't have to like Trump to admit he's doing a good job so far. Sure, the way Trump handled Tillerson, that lacked appeal. His approach to critics can make you wince. But the tax plan, the renewal of our military, the decimation of ISIS, it offers some optimism. You don't have to like the boss to admit the company's doing okay. So for the Dems, it may be time to nominate an adult with an actual plan, not simply a call for hope and change or an undergraduate's reliance on identity politics. A wish is no course of action, which explains why most places you find a Democrat in charge, you find an unholy mess. All right, Juan, go to you first. You agree with everything I had to say? Does the Democrats need like some kind of their correlation to Trump? They need their Trump.
Their Trump?
They need their Trump.
You mean a celebrity?
No, somebody that doesn't adhere to the typical traditional mode of a politician. Or maybe their Trump was already Barack Obama.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's how we have Trump.
Yes, that's right.
In fact,
that's
I
true.
read something the other day, Dana, that said that we are in a moment where you have to be like a cultural phenomenon in order to win the presidency. That doesn't speak well to parties or the structure or the establishment, but that would be one argument.
Yes.
To my mind, the big thing is here, especially after the Connor Lamb apparent victory in Pennsylvania, is that if the next election is a referendum on Trump, Trump loses. So he's got to dirty up the Democrats. So you need a Democrat who can, in fact, engage and be a fighter. And I think that's what's different, because going back to George W., people said that's a guy you want to have a drink with. You want to have a beer with him.
Yeah.
Well, maybe now Joe Biden, who would be at the top of the Democrats' list at the moment, is a guy you want to have a beer with. But you need a guy who's willing to get down and dirty with Trump.
Right, and Joe might not have the energy, Jesse, to keep up.
Yeah, he'll be older than I think President Trump at the time. I don't think Joe wants it. But it's very difficult to defeat an incumbent president. It's only happened a few times in the last couple decades. You had Bill Clinton, who was extremely talented and kind of caught lightning in a bottle. And then you had Jimmy Carter one term because basically the whole world collapsed and gas prices were high and he was a pathetic mess. And Reagan came along just at the right time. So I don't think they have a chance at defeating him. I think it's going to be a lot closer than it was in 2016. But they do need someone that can throw haymakers with President Trump. But they have to do it in more of an aspirational way, because if you get in the mud with Trump, you're going to get dirty and you're going to get bruised up, and it's going to be tough to recover. Elizabeth Warren's not going to be able to do it. Kamala Harris, Booker, Bernie, I just don't think they have the innate talent. You can't just draft someone out of the blue. Talent has to bubble up and arise from somewhere within the country. And if I'm looking at the list here, and I have a whole long list of Democrats, I don't see anybody with even small amount of talent compared to this president.
It's interesting, though. You know, Dana, they did find Obama. He was kind of drafted, right?
Well, he gave the speech at the Democratic National Convention in 2004, and everyone went and said, "Whoa, who's that?" And then, 3 years later, he's the nominee. That's I don't know if he was drafted so much as in some ways he was a phenomenon, and he was the opposite. Often people go for opposites, but you mentioned Bill Clinton and how he did well. One of the things that helped Bill Clinton so much is that he lost his congressional majorities in the first midterm.
And had to change.
And then he worked with the Democrats, and then people were like, oh, actually, we kind of like this guy. I'm not saying that's going to happen in this case, but also the Democrats benefit this year because there is no one face of the party, just like Republicans benefited in 2010 when there was no one face. So they were fighting against the president, not just one person. That changes soon after they choose a nominee.
Kimberly, who do you think is the feistiest Democrat? Like, who's the one that will, like...
Well, the feistiest, in my opinion, would be Elizabeth Warren. She loves to battle him, and they do, like, Twitter battle. Like, it's like Battlestar Galactica beats Twitter. So, but she's saying that she's not going to run now.
Yeah.
So he's going to be up against, the thing is, the number of people. I think there'll be, like, 15 or 16. It's going to be, like, the redux of when the Republicans all ran, and then who's left standing. So I think everybody's going to try and throw their hat in, especially since there isn't any Clinton family member blocking the spot. So it's kind of wide open race to see who qualifies.
And just one more thing. John Kerry tried to imitate Bush when he was, I served in Vietnam, reporting for duty. I don't think that works. I think you have to go with authenticity and someone the opposite.
Well, I think he tried that, too, because we were a nation at war right after 9/11.
And that's what they wanted.
Hey, wait a second. It worked for Connor Lamb, Marine.
Yeah, but Connor Lamb was closer to Trump than to Pelosi.
No.
Yes. No, he kind of said that.
Well,
anyway, I mean, his policies were closer to Trump than Pelosi.
Well, he was for tariffs. He was for unions. I mean,
Yeah.